In the driest deserts of North America, where rainfall averages less than 10 inches per year, indigenous peoples grew abundant food without irrigation systems. No wells, no pumps, no hoses, no water bills. They designed gardens that captured every single drop of rain, that distributed moisture perfectly across the entire growing area, that kept soil hydrated for weeks after a single rainfall. Gardens that literally watered themselves. This system is called waffle gardening. And while the Southwest faces catastrophic drought and farmers pump ancient aquifers dry, this 1,000-year-old technique sits forgotten, ignored, buried in the same desert soil, where it once created abundance from scarcity. I'm about to show you the most water-efficient garden design ever created. And I'm going to tell you exactly why modern agriculture pretends it doesn't exist. Let me show you what a waffle garden actually looks like, because this is brilliantly simple and devastatingly effective. Imagine looking down at a waffle. Those squares, those raised ridges, those sunken pockets. Now make that out of soil. That's waffle gardening. You create a grid of raised soil beds, each one about 12 to 18 inches higher than the pathways between them. The raised beds are where you plant. The sunken pathways are channels that capture and hold water. When rain falls, it doesn't run off. It can't. Those raised beds act like walls. The water gets trapped in the pathways between them. It sits there, soaking in, distributing slowly and evenly across the entire garden instead of running away. The Zuni people of New Mexico perfected this technique over 1,000 years. They grew corn, beans, squash, melons, and countless other crops in one of the harshest agricultural environments on Earth. 8 inches of rain per year, sometimes less, extreme heat, intense sun, conditions that would make modern farmers give up immediately. But waffle gardens turned scarcity into abundance. Every raindrop was captured. Every bit of moisture was used. Nothing was wasted. The design itself did the irrigation work. The beds are typically square, about 3 to 6 feet on each side. The pathways between them are about 6 to 12 inches deep. When it rains, those pathways fill with water. The water doesn't puddle uselessly on the surface. It soaks into the sides of the raised beds, distributing moisture horizontally through the root zones of the plants. This horizontal distribution is key. In conventional flat gardens, water soaks straight down. It moves vertically past the root zone and is lost. In waffle gardens, the water moves horizontally from the pathways into the raised beds. It stays in the root zone. It feeds the plants instead of disappearing into deep soil layers. The raised beds also warm up faster in spring because they're elevated and get more sun exposure. They drain excess water during rare heavy rains because they're raised. They create perfect growing conditions in a climate that shouldn't support intensive agriculture at all. And the beauty of it, once you build the grid, nature does the rest. Rain falls, water gets captured, soil stays moist. Plants thrive, you just harvest. That's it. No complex irrigation, no pumping, no technology. Just elegant design, working with nature instead of fighting it. This is what indigenous agricultural engineering looks like. Sophisticated, efficient, sustainable, and completely ignored by modern agriculture. When European settlers arrived in the Southwest, they saw waffle gardens. They documented them. They even acknowledged they worked. And then they replaced them with methods that require constant water inputs and failed during drought. Why? Because waffle gardens don't scale to industrial agriculture. They're labor-intensive to establish. They require thoughtful design for each specific site. They can't be planted with massive machines. They don't fit the model of endless flat fields that tractors can drive across. Modern southwestern agriculture relies on massive irrigation systems, center pivot sprinklers pulling water from underground aquifers, canals diverting rivers, pumps running constantly. It's extractive, it's unsustainable, and it's failing. The Ogallala Aquifer, which supplies water to much of American agriculture, is being drained 10 times faster than it can recharge. Arizona is pumping groundwater at catastrophic rates. New Mexico's aquifers are collapsing. The Colorado River barely reaches the ocean anymore because agriculture has claimed every drop. All of this while a technique that grows food with natural rainfall sits forgotten. But here's what's even more infuriating. Waffle gardening doesn't just conserve water. It creates better growing conditions. The raised beds mean better drainage during occasional heavy rains. The captured water in pathways means consistent moisture during dry spells. The grid creates microclimates where different plants thrive in different positions. Modern agriculture flattens everything, homogenizes everything, then fights the natural conditions with inputs. Waffle gardens work with the natural conditions and create abundance through design. And there's another element modern agriculture abandoned. Waffle gardens often incorporated small check dams and berms upslope to slow runoff and direct it into the garden grid. They weren't isolated systems. They were part of larger water harvesting strategies that captured every drop across entire landscapes. Indigenous peoples in the Southwest understood watershed management at a level modern agriculture hasn't achieved despite all our technology. They knew exactly where water flowed. They designed around it, they captured it, they used it efficiently. Then settlers arrived and decided straight rows and flood irrigation were superior. They weren't, they aren't, but they were easier to implement with machines and fit the industrial model. So waffle gardens became primitive and inefficient instead of what they actually are, genius. Now, let's talk about why waffle gardens work so effectively. Because the science validates what indigenous peoples knew through observation. Water harvesting efficiency in waffle gardens approaches 90 to 95%. That means almost every drop of rain that falls on the garden area stays in the garden area. Compare that to conventional flat gardens, where runoff can exceed 50% on sloped ground. The grid pattern creates what hydrologists call micro-watersheds. Each pathway section becomes a tiny watershed that captures and holds water. The ratio of growing area to water capture area is optimized. You're not wasting space on non-productive water catchment. The pathways serve dual purposes: walking access and water storage. Soil moisture studies show waffle garden beds maintain consistent moisture levels much longer than flat beds after rainfall events. The horizontal wicking from the water-filled pathways keeps the root zones hydrated. This means plants experience less water stress, they grow more consistently, they produce better yields. The raised beds also create what's called the stack effect in terms of temperature. The elevated soil warms faster in spring and fall, extending the growing season. But the moisture in the pathways creates cooling through evaporation during extreme heat, moderating temperature swings. And here's something remarkable. Waffle gardens actually improve over time. The organic matter from crop residues and the consistent moisture create excellent conditions for soil biology. Beneficial microorganisms thrive. Soil structure improves. Water infiltration and retention get better each season. Modern agriculture degrades soil with each passing year. Waffle gardens build soil. That's the difference between working with natural processes and fighting them. Research from New Mexico State University and traditional Zuni farmers has documented water use efficiency improvements of 60 to 80% compared to conventional flatbed gardens in arid conditions. That's not marginal improvement. That's transformative. In practical terms, this means you can grow food in waffle gardens with rainfall amounts that would make conventional gardens completely unviable. Or you can use supplemental water at a fraction of what conventional gardens require. This matters more now than ever. Climate change is making rainfall more erratic, droughts are longer and more severe, water rights are increasingly contested, and here's this ancient technique that makes gardens drought-proof through design alone. How do you build a waffle garden? It's not complicated, just different. Choose your site. Flat to gently sloped areas work best. If sloped, position to capture runoff from upslope. Mark your grid. Traditional Zuni gardens used 4-foot squares. Use stakes and string. Make it as large or small as your space allows. Excavate dig pathways 6 to 12 inches deep. Use that soil to build beds 12 to 18 inches above ground level. Shape beds level on top. Shape pathways level at bottom. Water in pathways should be consistent depth across the grid. Compact pathways lightly so water doesn't drain too quickly. You want slow, even soaking into bedsides. Crown the bed top slightly so excess water during heavy rains can sheet off into pathways instead of puddling. Plant use beds like any raised bed. The difference, irrigation, happens through pathways, not from above. When rain falls, it fills pathways. To water manually, fill pathways with a hose, water soaks in from the sides. Roots drink from bed edges inward. This creates dense, extensive root systems that are more drought-resistant. Roots grow toward moisture outward, toward bed edges. You can plant densely because water distribution is even. Plant has equal access to moisture from surrounding pathways. No dry spots, maintenance, keep pathways clear. Annually re-excavate if erosion fills them in. Add organic matter to beds for fertility. Build once, use forever. The design does the work. Why waffle gardening matters urgently? The American West is in a drop. Not temporary, a fundamental shift lasting decades or permanent. Traditional agriculture is failing. Aquifers collapsing, rivers drying. Waffle gardens allow food production with dramatically less water. They make every drop count. They create resilience in conditions becoming more common. Climate change means erratic rainfall, long dry periods, intense storms. Waffle gardens handle both. They capture intense rains that cause runoff. They extend captured water through dry periods for home gardeners and small farmers. Food security without water bills, without municipal systems that may fail, without wells that may run dry. Social justice dimension. Water is becoming a commodity controlled by corporations. Waffle gardens democratize food production. You can grow with rainfall alone, not dependent on systems you don't control. This is indigenous technology solving modern problems caused by ignoring indigenous wisdom. Techniques that fed people in the harshest deserts for millennia are exactly what we need as climate change makes more regions desert-like. Waffle gardens, scale backyard grids, community gardens, small farms. Every garden creates drought resilience. Every garden watering itself with rain is one less drain on stressed systems. That ancient design that watered itself naturally, that turned desert rainfall into abundant food, that's not history. That's the blueprint for surviving droughts ahead. The Zuni and southwestern indigenous nations figured this out 1,000 years ago. Food security in one of Earth's harshest environments, without technology, without fossil water, without unsustainable extraction. They did it with design, with observation, with working with water instead of fighting it. Modern agriculture ignored this because you can't patent it, can't sell inputs for it. It makes people independent instead of dependent. But as water becomes scarce and droughts become normal, waffle gardens shift from curiosity to survival necessity. You don't need permission, don't need expensive materials, just understand the principle and do the work. Create the grid, capture the rain, let design do irrigation. This is lost green knowledge, returning when we need it most. The knowledge survived in Zuni communities and Pueblo nations who never stopped using these techniques. Now it's spreading to homesteaders, permaculture practitioners. Anyone who realizes fighting nature is a losing game. Build a waffle garden. Capture every drop. Grow food from rain. Prove ancient wisdom solves modern crises. The drought isn't going away, but your dependence on unsustainable water systems can